James Chin from the University of Tasmania to share his perspective.
Thank you very much, Ethan. Thank you for the kind introduction. And I'd like to thank KSI for the opportunity to speak to all of you today. So given the fact that I don't have a lot of time, I'll try to be very, very brief on several main points. I think I'll start by answering the question about GE15. I think it is too early to try to second guess what GE15 is about. For a very simple reason that we have a funny situation where on the government side, one party in the government, UMNO, wants to trigger an early general election, while the other party that holds the prime ministership, Bersatu, wants to delay as long as possible. So it's very difficult to say whether a GE will go ahead this year or whether it will be delayed further. Secondly, I think it's also presumptuous on us to try to guess who actually will be the prime minister when the GE comes around. I think everything is up in the air. If you try to read the tea leaves, it's very, very obvious that there's a strong faction, UMNO, who wants to trigger further instability in the PN government. In fact, they want to pull out of the PN government during the UMNO GA, that was General Assembly that was supposed to be held at the end of January. And it was the emergency that stopped all this. But discussions are still holding on in the background. And my understanding is that there's still quite a big chunk of UMNO people who think that, things are not working out and that they really need to pull out this government and force a GE as soon as possible. So I think going forward for the rest of this year and the coming years, I think the key word is political instability. And I think the political instability will come mostly from the Malay community themselves. And I want to spend a bit of time explaining why I think this is the case. I think it doesn't matter how you look at it, Perikatan Nasional will forever be unstable. And the reason is very simple. I think one of the earlier speakers spoke about this. If you look at the period when Malaysia was actually very stable, it was during the rule of Barisan Nasional. Now, what were one of the key elements of Barisan Nasional? The key element of Barisan Nasional is that you have one core Malay party and you can have as many parties as you want representing the other political interest groups or ethnic groups, but you can only have one core Malay party. So that was how Barisan Nasional became very stable. What do you have now? What you have is basically two core Malay parties in government now, each trying to be the dominant one. You have UMNO on the one hand, plus Bersatu on the other. So basically, as the Chinese say, you have two tigers on the same mountain, and that mountain can only support one tiger. So until this issue is resolved, you really cannot have any stability in the PN government. You also have instability in the PN government because each of the parties in the PN government are trying to increase the support among the Malay community. This means that all the three current parties, the core parties, UMNO, Bersatu, and PAS, they're all basically fighting over the 110 rural Malays. They're trying to do it in such a way that there will be a clear winner in the upcoming general election. I'm sure you all know in the last GE, the vote was basically split three ways. They're all trying to make sure that you do not have a return of this scenario in the next GE, that there will be a clear winner in the Malay seats. So therefore, you have one Malay dominant party again. So that's on the Malay party side and why I think it will be unstable for some time to come. It will only be stable once you have one dominant Malay party. And I think big parts of the Malay establishment can come around this view that, and you can see some of the policies that are being pursued. For example, PN, just recently they allowed Gerakan to join up. Again, you can see that they're trying to rebuild PN 2.0. One core Malay party and multiple parties representing other interest groups. So that's the first point. The second point is something that was alerted to by YB Kelvin, which is the Sarawak state elections. I think this year they're going to hold it whether they like it or not due to the constitutional requirements. The only slight disagreement I have with YB Kelvin is that I don't believe that the Sarawak state government GPS wants to hold a concurrent elections. I think they would do what they can to try to have a separate elections. I don't think they want it to go in together unless they're forced to. Right now, if you go to the ground, it's quite obvious that GPS has the upper hand. And I say that for a very simple reason that the opposition is fragmented. The opposition blocks basically consist of PH Sarawak and a group called PSB, led by the former finance minister of Sarawak, Wong. These are basically the two big blocks. But within the PH itself, is actually DAP, which is the most stable party. They have a good machinery. They're likely to win in the urban areas again. The only group that is sort of up in the air right now is basically the Bidayu voters. The other groups are basically quite stable. So, for example, I expect the Malay Muslim community to keep supporting PBB and GPS. The Chinese majority will go over to DAP. Dayaks majority will go to GPS again. So it's really the issue of Bidayu seats, whether they're up in the air or not. So in terms of the Sarawak state election, what I expect is that GPS to win again, but I do not think they will get the same majority they had the last time around. Last time around, they had sort of a super majority. They won 72 out of 72 out of 82 seats. I don't think they will get a similar number of seats. They might lose a few, but by and large, unless something very big happens, I doubt very much that the opposition can actually win, especially given the fact that they can't come together as a united front. Third thing I want to speak about, of course, is Undi 18. I think Undi 18 is a crucial issue. If you read what the young people are saying, I think there's lots of anger in the community that the current government is trying to delay under 18 voters. I think it's quite clear that based on all the previous research that's been done in Malaysia, that if they were to reduce the voting age to under 18, the people who benefit will be the current opposition. Okay, so I think the 18 will not happen for the SGE unless there's a concerted push by civil society. But again, having said that, we have seen that because of COVID-19, this government basically can ignore a lot of the wishes of the public. So basically, my summary is that political stability will stay with us for the rest of 2021. And this political stability is not only in PN, but it's also in Barisan Nasional, and it's also in Pakatan Harapan, because we also have no clear leadership in Pakatan Harapan as well. I think if the early GE were to happen, I don't think it will lead to political stability. I also believe that, like the previous speaker, that the voting pattern, if a general election is held, will be fairly similar, and then there will be a lot of horse trading immediately after the general election. Sabah and Sarawak with 57 MPs, I think will play a very, very important role once the results come out. I think the other point I want to make about Sarawak is that the results of the Sarawak election, assuming it's a separate election, cannot be used as a barometer for what will happen to the rest of Malaysia. Sarawakians vote in a very peculiar way, in some ways a very parochial view of the world. So you cannot use the pattern of the Sarawak state election and say that this will likely be the pattern for the rest of Malaysia. And finally, I just want to say that by and large, very sad to say that Malaysian politics is regressing. I think the big lesson that we learned in the past year after the fall of the Pakatan Harapan government is that the non-Malays are no longer part of the equation. I think the part of the equation has been taken over by Sabah and Sarawak. And I think that one of the clear signs that Malaysian politics is regressing is that you can see the number of people who are trying to get out of Malaysia. One of the most interesting statistics, which is not widely known in Malaysia, is that if you look at the people applying asylum in other countries, asylum in other words, you're trying to get out and get into those countries, not through the normal visa system, but try to apply as asylum. You just look at Australia. It is quite interesting that if you look at the applicants for people applying for what they call protection visa in the Australian system, right? For 2 years in a row, right? The biggest applicant actually came from Malaysia. And I'm not joking. These are public figures. So for example, in the year 2018 to 2019, right? There were more than 8,000 people Malaysians who tried to apply for protection visas. It's quite interesting because we know that Malaysia, we don't really have a civil war or things like that, but still they try their luck to apply for a protection visa. in Australia. So this tells me that even the ordinary people are losing faith in the system and they're trying to get out. Finally, my final comment is that I do not see any circuit breaker on the horizon. I don't see a way out. The reason I say that is because the current political elites are still in control of the system, and there is no political force outside the current political elites who are capable of coming in to break the current political situation. So it's basically the same players. The same players we have in the 1970s, 80s, 1990, 2000, they're still the same play calling the shots today. But unfortunately, they're running out of ideas, but they're not willing to share power with anybody else. Thank you.